Tonight, the children who died in a house fire in Northern Ontario are mourned by their community.
We can fight this opioid crisis. We can fight the substance use. We just need to work together.
Plus, the Carcross Tagish First Nation in the Yukon takes steps to battle Canada's worst outbreak of overdose deaths.
The First Nations had lower odds of receiving these higher acuity triage scores.
And is the cure worse than the disease? A study shows unequal balance in how First Nation patients are treated in Alberta ERs. Good evening and welcome to APTN National News. I'm Daryl Stranger. We have more details from that tragic house fire in Sandy Lake First Nation. According to a statement released by the nation, only one water truck was available to feed the fire truck, and the lack of adequate water lines and infrastructure prevented the use of fire hydrants. They also identified the 3 children who died. Grant Meekus turned 9 years old on January 13th. His sister Remy Meekus was 6 and younger brother Grant Fiddler was 4. They are survived by their parents Delaney Meekus and Cassandra Meekus, as well as 3 other siblings. Sandy Lake First Nation is 600 kilometers north of Thunder Bay. Our deepest condolences go out to their family. Iqaluit's water woes continue again this week as officials confirm there is fuel in the city's water system. Yes, again. Melissa Ridgen explains.
According to the City of Iqaluit's website, the water system is currently being flushed and water samples being analyzed. Officials say, quote, trace amounts of fuel was confirmed in the water last week after residents took to social media complaining of a fuel smell coming from the taps. Iqaluit went 60 days without clean tap water beginning last October. The military was called in and residents lived on bottled water for those 2 months before the problem was fixed. That problem being a nearby fuel tank somehow leached into the water system. Residents only enjoyed less than a month of having taps back on before the problem came back last week. The City of Iqaluit says there are very low concentrations of fuel in the water now, not warranting a do not consume order, but they do understand residents' reluctance to want to drink it. Yesterday they posted on Facebook that they're looking for an alternative source of water right now. The government of Nunavut says experts are working to resolve the issue yet again. Melissa Ridgen, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Joining us now to discuss the situation is Iqaluit Mayor Kenny Bell. Mayor Bell, thanks for joining us today. What can you tell us about how your city is coping with the new fuel smell?
Yeah, well, it's frustrating. Everyone's frustrated and frankly, really tired of the never-ending emergencies here. But it's going okay. Monday morning, Wednesday morning, we had 2 hits around between 50 and 60 micrograms on this SCAN unit, which tests hydrocarbons from our water. It's too low to hit our alarm, so we didn't know about it until the complaints started coming in. And it's well within the Canadian limits, but why is there a Canadian limit for hydrocarbons in the water is beyond me. But it's stressful and tiresome.
Now, as you just mentioned, the levels are below the threshold, but how safe is the water with even trace amounts of fuel present?
Yeah, I'm a layman in water thought process, but the government of Canada has 390 micrograms as a limit, and we were around between 50 and 60 that was going out of our treatment center. So for those two mornings, anyways, we haven't had any hits on the SCAN since then, so that's good news. It's just we assume there's obviously work being done, but right now, we think that was just an anomaly, that there was some leftover hydrocarbons in our system somewhere that finally flushes its way through. So we're hoping that's the case. We're obviously testing and there's an environmental cleaning that was supposed to start today, but there's flights were canceled from Ottawa. So hopefully they'll be starting tomorrow and we'll get all that done as well.
So Mayor Bell, what are your options for an alternate source of water?
Really, there isn't really an alternative source right now. We do have our Silver River, which is in our territorial park, and we used it during the summer, and we are using it right now to help. We have one location open for river water. But because the government of Nunavut hasn't called the do not consume, we're still just operating with our regular tap water. I've personally never smelt the diesel. One time here at City Hall, early morning around 7 a.m., I smelt it for a very fast second when I started the coffee, but I've never smelt it. Over the last couple of days, I've gone to a couple of my friends' houses that have been complaining about the smell, and I still haven't smelt it. So it's just it's at that level where it's not a lot, but some people are more susceptible to the smell than others, and that's pretty indicative. We had 116 phone calls as of yesterday at 3 o'clock. And we have obviously way more than 116 residents. So the numbers. I mean, it's not good. Don't get me wrong. Having anything in our system is terrible. But it seems like it was just an isolated incident, and hopefully after flushing our systems, it will be back to normal again.
Now, your 8,000 residents have just come off a 2-month-long do not consume order. What's your message right now to them?
Oh man, the frustration, I know people are frustrated. Some people are more frustrated than others. I'm frustrated. I don't understand this stuff. As a mayor during this time, especially under COVID restrictions and COVID world, it's been a real hard time for all of us. And the fact that everyone's been home has been even worse. You should be able to expect clean water from your house, from your taps. We're going to get it fixed. We're waiting for the government of Canada to announce. Hopefully, obviously, we're looking for some good words from the government of Canada soon on the 184 million that we've asked for to help fix our water supply original crisis, which has been over 6 years now, around 6 years now. And it's just that water has been a major issue here for a number of years, and we really need some federal support and to get there. We're working hard to get it fixed, and I'm just very grateful for the patience of our citizens.
All right, Mayor Bell, thank you so much for taking a few minutes to speak with us today.
Of course, anytime. Thank you so much.
Some good news on the pandemic front. Health Canada approved a new antiviral drug for those infected with COVID-19 on Monday. APTN's Fraser Needham has more.
And today, Health Canada announced it has authorized Paxlovid, the first COVID-19 therapy that can be taken at home.
Canada's Chief Public Health Officer says the new drug adds another weapon in the toolbox to fight COVID. It's a drug that can treat those experiencing mild COVID symptoms. And non-fully vaccinated Indigenous people are one of the priority groups to keep high-risk Canadians out of the hospital or from even dying.
Today's announcement is particularly important, as access to easy-to-use treatments could help to reduce the severity of COVID-19 in adults who become newly infected and are at high risk of progressing to serious illness.
At the same time, the health minister says the drug should not be seen as a substitute for getting vaccinated.
A drug is a treatment. No, it's much better not to have to be treated, and the best way to not to have to be treated is to be vaccinated. So you don't want to end up with COVID-19, even though you might be given a drug. No, that's not what you want.
Leader Aaron O'Toole commented on the fact Paxlovid is in short supply.
I understand there's really only about 30,000 doses in Canada. We have to ramp that up dramatically, get it to the provinces as quickly as possible, and the provinces need to prioritize it in a way that takes pressure off of our hospital system.
Other priority groups include those who are immunocompromised and people aged over 60 living in remote communities. Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.
A study by the University of Alberta and the First Nations Information Governance Centre shows unequal treatment in Alberta emergency rooms. As APTN's Chris Stewart reports, some people in high places are starting to notice.
When someone gets hurt badly enough, they normally go to the nearest emergency room. A health worker will assess the damage and assign a triage score from 1 to 5. 5 being non-urgent, 1 being the most serious. The University of Alberta studied 11 million visits to Alberta emergency rooms between 2012 and 2017. The result: First Nations people are triaged at a less important level, meaning longer wait times or the patient just leaves before getting treatment. Dr. Patrick McLean of the University of Alberta in Edmonton led the study.
For 3 of the 5 diagnoses we looked at, that's long bone fractures, acute upper respiratory infections, and anxiety disorder, we also saw that First Nations had lower odds of receiving these higher acuity triage scores.
Broke your arm or leg? You are 18% less likely to have a higher triage score than a non-First Nation patient. 10% less likely for respiratory infections. And anxiety disorders? The number jumps to 33%. Overall, First Nations people have a 7% less likelihood of a higher priority triage. Leah Bill is the Executive Director of the First Nations Information Centre, a registered nurse from Pelican Lake First Nation in Saskatchewan. She co-led the study, talking to people and elders, many who said they were not treated very well.
There was many stories shared with regards to racism, for example, derogatory things being said about them by healthcare providers, and then them leaving and not getting the care that they needed.
She says health providers need to stop stereotyping people.
There is a presumption that when Indigenous people or First Nations people present to the emergency that they're drug seeking as opposed to coming with a serious condition. My viewpoint on that is it doesn't matter whether or not you have an addiction issue. The first and foremost thing when you present at the emergency department, you should be assessed and triaged for a physical condition.
Bill says that Alberta Health appears to be listening.
We have provided them with recommendations. The good thing is that they are listening to us. And I believe that they are seriously looking at ways and mechanisms to bring about change. They do support our research completely.
But what we'd ask of the providers is that they really strive to see the patient before them as a unique individual. And we hope that these study findings are going to drive that kind of positive change and help improve the healthcare system.
Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Edmonton.
We need to take a short break, but still to come. 2 First Nations in British Columbia are striving to improve systemic racism in off-reserve education. We'll tell you how next. Welcome back. Systemic racism is often problematic in off-reserve education, and it's no different in northern British Columbia, where 2 First Nations are striving to improve the education of their children in the Prince George School District. APTN's Lee Wilson reports on what is being done to reach that goal.
For years, McLeod Lake Indian Band and Iqaluit First Nation have been raising concerns over education of Indigenous students in School District 57, located in Prince George, BC. Last year, the Minister of Education sent special advisors to investigate their concerns. Last summer, advisors released a report that found systemic racism and made over 40 recommendations. On Friday, leadership from the 2 communities announced the formation of an Indigenous Education Leadership Table. It plans to work with the school district.
So this new table is hopefully going to raise awareness about Indigenous values, Indigenous protocols, Indigenous ways of knowing, and it'll give an opportunity for us to define a new relationship with the school district.
The Minister of Education's Special Advisory Report said they found discriminatory practices in the Prince George School District. Unfortunately, we heard many examples of behaviors and practices that are clearly discriminatory and systemically racist. Though some will argue it is not intentional, the outcomes have disproportionate effects on Indigenous students and can only be explained as such. According to a press release, the Ministry of Education advisors are now working with the school district on recommendations. The school board must also consult with local First Nations. APTN News contacted the Prince George School Board for a comment, but did not hear back before airtime. School District 57 is made up of 30% Indigenous students, according to the school district website. McLeod Lake and Iqaluit hope they can work with the school board to improve graduation rates for Indigenous students and improve their overall education experience in the future.
What the Indigenous Education Leadership Table has to offer for the school district with a more hands-on approach with direct leadership, because our nations have always played a role within the school district, but it was always in an advisory capacity, whereas this will be more of a leadership and hands-on to support our students.
In March, the Ministry of Education Special Advisory will release a follow-up report from Prince George. Lee Wilson, APTN National News, Kitimat.
Residents of a small Yukon community came together this weekend to remember those lost to addictions. Now they're calling for change so no more lives will be lost to the territory's addictions crisis. Here's Sarah Connors with that story.
Carcross, Yukon. It's a small rural community known for its breathtaking beauty, but the people who live here are in crisis. During the first week of January, 3 members of the Carcross Tagish First Nation died from drug-related deaths. On Saturday, dozens of people gathered in the community to remember them and others lost to addictions. Felicia Johnson helped organize the vigil. A resident of Carcross for 9 years, she says the deaths weigh heavily on everyone.
It's really sad to see so many young people losing their lives. And, a lot of those people are Indigenous people.
The vigil was part of a territory-wide series where several communities remembered their loved ones lost to addictions and other problems associated with poor mental health. Last year alone, the Yukon Coroner's Service reported over 20 people died in the territory from opioid abuse. The service says the territory is now leading Canada in opioid deaths per population of 100,000 at 48.4 deaths.
So I just want to extend our gratitude and our love and our prayers out to each community.
Lindsay Amato is from the Carcross Tagish First Nation. She says the Yukon government isn't providing enough supports for people struggling in rural communities. For example, the territory's only supervised consumption site is in Whitehorse.
They need to give us more preventative services to each of our rural communities. They need to support our Indigenous people more than they ever have before.
Johnson agrees. She says some people in the community don't have computer skills and can't access what little supports are already in place.
Not a lot of people have support or, someone to help them locate those resources, or they don't have internet, or, they may be lacking the computer skills.
The Carcross Tagish First Nation declared a state of emergency over the deaths last week. The First Nation aims to secure more funding and supports from the territorial and federal governments. John Stryker, the community's MLA, promised he would lend his support.
I really appreciate Carcross Tagish First Nation stepping forward, and I want to show my support as the MLA and as the government.
Johnson is hopeful the community can come together to fight its addictions crisis.
We can fight this opioid crisis. We can fight the substance use. We just need to work together.
Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Carcross.
We need to step aside for one final break, but still ahead, a new anti-bullying documentary that highlights cultural significance of braids is set to premiere this week in Calgary. Details next. Welcome back. It's time now for our photo of the day. Jesse Jensen sent today's photo of the day. It's a view from along the frozen shoreline of Babine Lake in northern British Columbia. Looks like a snow-covered dock there, very calm and peaceful looking. Be sure to submit your photos to share@aptn.ca for the chance to be featured as our next photo of the day. And now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Beginning in the east, +4 in St. John's and 0 degrees in snow in Fredericton. -4 in snow in Nain and -21 in La Grande River. -20 in a mix of sun and cloud in Val d'Or and -4 in Quebec City. -18 in a mix of sun and cloud in North Bay and -13 in Ottawa. -18 in Timmins and -25 in Big Trout Lake. -26 in Churchill and snow and -26 in Thompson. Snowing and -23 in Winnipeg and -21 in snow in Brandon. More snow in Saskatoon and -22 and -8 in snow in Yorkton. -29 and a mix of sun and cloud in Stony Rapids and -12 in Buffalo Narrows. Over in the west, a mix of sun and cloud and minus 25 in Fort Chipewyan and minus 25 in Peace River. Mix of sun and cloud and minus 17 in Edmonton and plus 12 in Calgary. Plus 7 in Campbell River and sun and minus 6 in Quesnel. Minus 11 in Dease Lake and sunshine and minus 22 in Fort Nelson. Minus 19 in a mix of sun and cloud in Beaver Creek and minus 15 in Rock River. Sunshine and minus 28 in Norman Wells and minus 26 in Wrigley. Minus 26 in Colville Lake and minus 32 in snow in Fort McPherson. Minus 27 in Cambridge Bay and clear and minus 29 in Chesterfield. Minus 29 and clear in Resolute and snow and minus 25 in Iqaluit. The Pacific nation of Tonga is under a tsunami warning after the eruption of an undersea volcano. Satellite images show the moment the volcano erupted Saturday, resulting in large waves crashing across the shorelines of the many islands making up the Polynesian nation. There were no immediate reports of injuries or the extent of damage, as communications with the small nation have remained problematic. Authorities in Fiji have also issued a warning to avoid the shoreline, and New Zealand's military said it was monitoring the situation. A new anti-bullying documentary that highlights cultural significance of braids is set to premiere this week in Calgary. Braves Wear Braids sheds light on the backlash a lot of youth face when it comes to wearing braids. The doc was produced by Jamie and Bryce Starlight after hearing from boys and men who were teased and bullied for their braids. It will stream online for free starting Thursday on the Braves Wear Braids website. Bryce says many schools plan to use it as a learning tool. He hopes it encourages Indigenous youth to grow their hair.
A way to kind of physically show that support and physically give kids that encouragement that either are currently growing out their hair or have a desire to do so.
Check out that documentary. That's all the time we have for you tonight on APTN National News. As always, check out our website at aptnnews.ca for more Indigenous news. I'm Daryl Stranger. Thank you for joining us and have a great night.